Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Everyday Riches Show. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you being here. So if you like today's show, share it out. Would love to have new listeners. Anyways, I'm Barbara Ellison. I'm a transformational life trainer to help you, the baby boomer, make the rest of life the best of life. And Jason,
what's
good
up?
morning. How are you?
I am fantastic. So Jason Tracy, Barbara's co-host for about a year and a half now on this show. It's been an incredible ride. You'll see in my little box there, it says JT Money because I help businesses make money. And it's funny, I've had that nickname since like high school, and I grew up broke, so it never really made much sense to me. I just thought it was cool, but now it's like comes back and it's like it ties into what I'm doing in life, and it's kind of cool now. So I love to display it on this show.
Yes,
and we've got an awesome guest, of course, and another Jason, amazing guest.
And we have an awesome guest. Number one, he has the best name in the world. You have the best voice. He has the best name. David is my most favorite man's name, and had the privilege of being married to a David for 20 some odd years. So that was always cool. But David Hooker, welcome to the show. Got a great story. So Jason, meet David. David, meet Jason.
David, it is awesome meeting you.
Likewise.
In always the pretense of the show, so Barbara always finds the guests, since the beginning, or not since the beginning, but for the last probably this year, has gone out and found the guests. And so I don't know the majority of the people that she brings on, and it's always a fun, wild ride. I get to meet people and hear their stories, and that's what I love, hearing people's stories and what inspires them and how they're impacting the world. So
that's your superpower. That's what you like to do. So, and it's great for me. I just tag along.
You do far more than tag along, Barbara.
I try. I try. I've got tripod on my lap. She's asleep. So she usually interrupts us. So David, I'm going to just take a thing from Jason. Tell us about you and what you do. It's a very needed subject.
Well, hi, my name is David Hooker. I am with Life Crafters, trauma coaching and life coaching. And kind of give you a little background. I spent 4 years in the Navy on submarines. A lot of people say that that's a challenge. It wasn't much for me. It was like being in COVID. Except I couldn't look out the windows. I'd be underwater for 3 months at a time, and then come back to the States for 3 months, and then go back out for 3 months, etc. So, disabled veteran, and because I spent so much time in the military that I decided back in 2009, God put a call on my heart to help veterans. And I have been, I just kind of started with an idea, and it took off on its own and became what it is today. I thought I was going to be a counselor, and decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. It was a little more in depth than I wanted. Excuse me. And I found out about coaching. I got my foundational training in coaching. I got some training in mental health coaching, and some training in military and family coaching. So really enjoy what I do. I love it. It's helping people get back on their feet after trauma and experiencing some really bad stuff.
Yeah, you're right, Barbara. This is so needed. It's so needed. There's so many people going through those experiences and going through that trauma. This is like a total change of subject, but I've been stuck on it ever since you said it. And it's like so minuscule to your story, but literally you're down there for 3 months and there's no windows. You can't even look out the window.
No, nothing. And most of us don't even know where we're at down there.
Yeah. How would you? That's what I'm thinking is like, I picture windows, you can at least see the water and like you can see under the water. Is like that's always, I guess, been my mental picture. But you're down in there and all you see is that inside, you have no idea where you're at in the world whatsoever.
Right. Very
Thanks,
much.
So cool.
Jason. I'm not the only one that thought that. One time, my first husband was a submarine guy, and I said, "Well, couldn't you look out the windows?" He went, "Barb, seriously? Submarines don't have windows."
It's just something that you don't think about if you're not
Yeah.
on there. And it's like, I'm like, this is going to be such a stupid question because it's so minuscule in the story, but I can't get it off my mind because it's that perspective. Like I've always thought, I think of the Yellow Submarine and the Beatles.
Exactly.
And like, like they're looking out the windows.
Or
and,
or the Nautilus from H.G. Wells.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was always my picture of a submarine, was from the Nautilus. Well,
Yeah.
you can go and look at the panorama of the underworld sea. Well, yeah, guess what? No, you can't.
No, not really. And no screen doors either.
for obvious reasons.
Yes. Yes.
And you know what? Okay, one of the things that always struck me is how do they do day and night?
They
So
that's a complicated
very limited.
question. And that's a little bit complex because there's only so many people that can fit on a submarine. And
Right.
so some categories of jobs have 18-hour days instead of 24. And
Wow.
then the only time, well, actually, no, they do what's called rig for red. So at night, we have red lights going on in certain areas of the sub so that the eyes can be adjusted in case we have to come up to periscope depth,
Wow.
which is just below the surface enough that the periscope can come up. So they have red lights, which are easier on the eyes, and it doesn't mess with whatever the eyes do to adjust to day and night. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's the only way we know.
Yeah. Because and it was like, thank you, Jason, for saying this, because I was like, how do they do day and night in a submarine? If
Yeah,
everybody-
interesting questions. And it was not where we were going, but it's just one of those things. Like I've never had a conversation with somebody that's worked on a submarine. So it was like, it just caught my attention when you said,
Yeah.
it's not like you can look out the windows. I was like, wait a minute. And I just got, you think of just being in like a tunnel, kind of like just the walls around you. And again, you don't know where you're at. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, I have a post on my website that gives a description of why we do what we do and the kind of environment we're in. It'd be interesting to go see that because it kind of, from a submariner realistic perspective, it talks about how you're in this tube so many feet long, and you're down there with all these potentially having missiles on board, as well as torpedoes and all this explosive stuff. And then there was that Russian submarine up in the North Atlantic that was doing exercises with the Russians, and it literally blew the submarine almost in half. So it kind of gives you a perspective of the whole environment and the hazards we have down there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I have no concept of that, but yeah, living in a tube, and really isn't that what starts part of the PTSD and stuff? Like I've had PTSD after I was attacked by a dog.
Oh yeah.
And that was, and the funny thing was that for me, I didn't know I had it until my daughter-in-law afterwards, like probably a couple of months afterwards, she said, Barb, you have to go talk to somebody. I said, what? She said, no, you have PTSD. There's something wrong. You're not yourself.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
after and I think that's what part of the problem is
Right.
that sometimes people don't recognize that they have it. And I mean, like now, this is
Yeah.
going through the season where I still notice, because it took off the top of my my 2 fingers here, and
Ooh.
I'm feeling them. And like right now,
I understand that.
they're painful.
Yeah,
And it's going into that time of the year where all winter long, you'll see me holding my hands like this, just to keep my fingers warm. But that still brings back all of that trauma of that
Right.
out of nowhere attack of being attacked by a dog.
yeah.
So I can't imagine being on a submarine that blew up.
Well, fortunately, that does not happen
Very
Yeah.
often, but still.
very often. The potential is there. I don't want to get into, I mean, we're not talking about all of that right now, but the thing that I wanted to mention is that what I have experienced is that in the arms race, the Americans are for quality, not quantity. That doesn't mean we don't have quantity. It just means what we do is better,
Oh, okay.
safer.
Mm, mhm, mhm.
Well, then
Makes
then
sense.
And
some
I've
of,
heard of stories where where different countries, smaller countries, have been given a submarine from another country, say Russia or China or somebody, and they'll forget to close a hatch, and they'll dive and they'll flood the whole ship.
Oh my God. Wow.
So, we have procedures that make things very, very safe, and we're very happy. I mean, I was not concerned at all about being down there.
Yeah.
The thing that really causes trauma for a lot of submariners, particularly, but it goes throughout all military, is abuse, verbal, even sexual abuse, both for males and for females. And the thing that really challenges their getting help is there's several things. One is the stigma that is associated with getting mental health or help, mental health help. And there's also that potential that people who report it could receive backlash. They could potentially see, I mean, these are things that are going through their head, that they could be sorry, it's still early for me.
Pacific time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they feel like, well, if I report this, then this is going to go on my record, and I'm not going to get the promotions, or I'm going to be singled out, or all these different things, which adds to that trauma, whatever trauma it is, and it can really prevent people from getting the help that they need. Fortunately, there are places out there to get help. That was the primary reason I got this going, is that with the stigma, with the apprehension, with literally the fear or distrust of going to a military facility or military counselor, they're just, in some cases, they're afraid to do that because they don't want to experience, or they're afraid that something is going to come back on them, and so they don't go.
Well,
So
that's on their
that's why-
records too, right? It's like documented in their
Well,
records.
it's supposed to be
Medical,
confidential.
private, confidential. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, yes, technically it does go on their record. However, that's their fear. That's exactly their fear, is that it's going to go on their record, and it's going to It's going to prevent them from getting
Yeah.
promotions or going for another tour. You know, whatever they're wanting, it's going to prevent them from doing so because of this being on their record. So I got this coaching started because I'm a private organization that can help people work through some of this stuff. And even after they get out, they still struggle with it. And so I'm here to help these people get over it. My slogan is, I specialize in veterans trauma. I help you get your stuff together and feel connected and build healthy, lasting relationships, which is something that veterans really have a hard time with, especially combat veterans who, you know, fireworks and, you know, all these other things, even a backfire from a car can cause someone to go into and relive their battle experience. So there's a lot of things out there that can really trigger a person or prevent them from getting the help that they need.
So you're working with active people in the active military now, and then veterans, kind of both combo.
Yes. Yeah, primarily people who have trauma from the military, either current or previous. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of them out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's only a small percentage, less than 10%, that actually of men that actually report having been abused. And it can happen on a lot of different levels. Boot camp did it for some people. And you know, and then there's moral injury as well, where you're told to do something totally against your innate beliefs, right? So if you believe that killing is wrong and you end up having to go to war and kill somebody, that can really wreak havoc on your moral foundation.
What do you think is the biggest physical thing that people suffer with that have gone through a trauma? Is there something specific? Like with me, I just got absolutely paralyzed when I would see a dog coming near me.
Right. Yeah, there are definitely symptoms and things that you can look out for. Hypervigilance, both during the day and during the night. Hypervigilance being you're overly sensitive, like you said, to having a dog around, or to, as I said earlier, to
loud noises,
fireworks or car backfires, or somebody approaching you wrong. Right. I mean, think about these poor guys who are over in a war area and somebody sneaks up behind them to scare them. I mean, for both people, that could be really hazardous, because especially if this person hasn't been able to deal with any of this and they sneak up behind them as a joke to play with them. They boo, can trigger that person and send them into a warlike atmosphere, just put them right back into that situation. So you can have a lot of different symptoms. Poor night, not being able to sleep at night is another one. Again, hypervigilance there can cause a person to wake up if you can get to sleep, wake up at anything that, you know, a dog outside or anything that the person perceives as danger. There can be physical things like gastrointestinal symptoms, not being able to eat, or eating too much as a way of compensating. Drugs and alcohol are definitely a big one
Yeah.
that people deal with. So there's a lot of different things that people can see, but really when, like I had mentioned earlier about making and keeping healthy, lasting relationships is a big one, because
Yeah.
you don't trust people. And also you've been in an environment in the military where military is your family, your buddies. You're going to die for these people to keep them safe, and they'll
Yeah.
die for you to keep you safe. There's no greater bond than to be out there where you're literally in physical danger, where you have to depend on your friends and your buddies out there. You know, I'm thinking combat, but there's also, you know, the camaraderie. I mean, imagine being, excuse me, imagine being cooped up inside this cigar tube for 3 months at a time,
Yeah.
and the same guys every day, all day. You know, it can, I had an experience one time where this guy was just joking with me, and I came down a ladder, and when I hit the bottom, he was standing there and he goosed me, grabbed my bottom, right? And well, with all the experience that I'd had, I whipped around and I was going to beat the tar out of this guy. He didn't know my experience.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's so much related to this, and there's so many symptoms. So if anybody has any of the symptoms I mentioned, or are concerned about any mental health issues, you know, they're free to give me a call. You know, I talk to people for free for the first session, and the VA. I know that a lot of people don't like to go to the VA because there's a lot of stories out there, but I've had nothing but good experience with them. Sure, there are people and they make mistakes, but you know,
It's like in any other organization, there are your bad apples. So,
right.
but
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I know when David took sick, the VA was wonderful.
Yeah, I really like the VA.
It made my life so much easier dealing with all the stuff that he went through, and the trips to the hospital, and just and they were so kind, you know, in his last days. So it was like, yeah.
And if you've been in the military, you have earned it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people out there who have lost limbs, or, you know, been shot, or, you know, there's so many scenarios. I'm a real advocate for the VA. I mean, I'm not paid by them. I don't get any kind of compensation from them, but I believe in them so strongly that I just tell every veteran that I meet, or every military person I meet, please get some help. They're there for that. I can help within my little niche. And there are so many other things that you can get from the VA. And they're also reaching out to communities where you can get, if you don't have a VA near you, you can reach out, or they can help you get local doctors, psychiatrists, counselors, all kinds of different help through what's called TRICARE. And they can, the VA pays for it, but it's a local, non-military related organization that can help you.
Yeah. You know, and that stuff is good to know, which is why, I mean, I have to tell you, David, this subject is a little off of what Jason and I normally talk about, but you know, we truly believe that it's a needed thing. And you know, this show is called the Everyday Riches Show.
Right.
Well, our military, they lay their life on the line for us to have our everyday riches.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just, you know, it was like when you and I first originally talked, it was like, yeah, we're gonna, you know, because people need to know that there's an answer out there, and that they are not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can apply to anything. So often people come to me and go, well, gee, Barb, oh, I can't believe you said that. Oh, I thought I was the only one that felt that way. It's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, for a long time, I felt that way. That I'm the only one I felt isolated. I felt, and again, that's another symptom of PTSD and trauma, is that you feel isolated and alone, disempowered. You don't have the personal permission, I call it, to feel like you're one of millions of people who literally have gone through what you're going through. Yeah, I wanted to say real quick, I'm not a licensed counselor, but I do work with trauma with people who are fairly functional. They don't necessarily need a counselor, or they can see a counselor and me to help them get things coordinated more rapidly.
You're right. Yeah.
So describe to me, like, what do you do? How do you plug in with somebody in help them, talk about getting their life back together and build upon their relationships? And it sounds like you can be an aid on top of them seeing a therapist and getting them help from there. How do you bring people in and work with them?
Well, that's a really good question, Jason. And not that I want to avoid that. I do want to address it, but it's kind of hard to just say this is how I do it, because each person is individual and they have individual needs and challenges. So what we do is we sit down, and the very first thing we do is determine if I am a good fit with them, if my personality and theirs fit together well, if what I do is something that they need. And after all of that is determined, then we set goals for every session. And then there's a little homework in between sessions that they can work on to help certain things. And I know, Barbara, you know that about coaching and how we give them homework and how we encourage them to be empowered. We don't empower them, they empower themselves. So we, in essence, like I said earlier, we empower or give them permission to empower themselves, to say, I'm not the only person. Wow, that gave me so much power when I realized I'm not the only person in this situation. There's hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of people out there in my situation. And just saying, you're not the only one. Your opinion counts. You are gifted. That is so freeing for people. And so that's kind of what we do, right, Barbara? We kind of give them permission to be who they are and to grow and develop.
Right. And Jason does the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. No, when you said that, and every person is unique. And so it's like, it's one of those things of, not having an agenda. That's the same thing for me in coaching, my people. I don't have an agenda of where we're going. It's theirs, and it's empowering them. It's one of those things I was wondering, like, what steps do you take them through, or like, where can people plug you in?
Well, I can actually, as I said, I'm not a counselor, so I don't go back into history and delve into all of the things that cause them to be where they're at. That cause their PTSD, that cause their anxieties. That's where they would need a counselor. But I sit down with people, and as I said earlier, I work with people who are fairly functional, but still have that extra little step that they need to figure out how to get over the little hump that they're still struggling with some things, but They've, you know, I've had PTSD forever. And there are times when I just need a little bit of help to get over that last hump.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
to, for example, I struggled. I called it, or someone said, you might have, what do they call it? Shoot. I can't think of the name of it now.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's where you see yourself different than the rest of the world sees you. Okay.
Mhm.
I saw myself as worthless. I saw myself as, and I've been fairly functional, you know, for the better part of my adult life. However, there was that little hump. That's where I can help. It's being able to say, okay, what is it you're struggling with? How do you think that we can address this? And as you said, Jason, you know, it's not our agenda, it's yours. And so we just help people to find and figure out what it is that they want to overcome, and then help them figure out ways to manage or to alleviate those situations.
Jason
Yes.
and I have several times talked about this. Sometimes it just starts with being aware that you want help.
Right.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge.
I think of, and this is like a good example. I had this client that I worked with, and she came in one of our first sessions. She talked about how she's not creative, and I knew her. I met her a year before. I met her in a crowded networking event, so there was a ton of people. It was a really loud, a really loud environment. And I met
Right.
her, and I asked her to tell me a story. She does coaching through equine, like equine coaching with that, and she'd be actually an excellent person to have on the show, Barbara. I'm going to key up Penny Wilson. But she said, so anyway, she starts telling me this story around her coaching, and literally she was working with a young man who's on the spectrum and a little boy. And this whole really emotional story of how she transformed this little boy's life with these horses and with her coaching. And I'm like, it was the way she told that story was so creative. I'm in this crowded room and it's loud, and I had tears in my eyes. And that was like what sparked our relationship. I had her on my podcast, and then eventually we ended up working together. And so she's telling me she's not creative. And I was like, really? So I was like asking her questions and, like poking her, I kind of like, this is what I see in you. I was attracted to you because of your creativity. And she's like, yeah, but I'm just a really good storyteller. And I'm like, well, what is storytelling? And she was like, creativity. And I'm like, in her job, she looks at herself, she's like in HR, and she's in the analytical, and like she's in data, and she's in all these pieces, but she's a problem solver. The reason why she's like high end in the job that she's had, or she's been successful in the jobs that she's had, is because she's a problem solver. And she's like, yeah, I've just always been a problem solver. I'm like, what is problem solving? What do you have to be in order to be a problem solver? Oh my God, creative. And so that was the homework, because we talk about the homework, right? It was like, go this week, and I want you to list that. What are things that that you can see yourself being creative in? And she ended up giving me 2 pages, alphabetized, of course, because she's analytical first.
Of course.
But like 2 pages of alphabetized ways that she's creative. And throughout we worked together for a whole 2 months. And throughout that whole 2 months, the theme of every one of our conversations was she'd start talking about something, and she's like, and that's my creativity right there. And so it's just really cool to see. And as you're talking, David, I can picture you doing that same thing of, there are people that you're talking about being high functional, but then you see yourself as worthless, or you see yourself as not being creative, or you see yourself as like, maybe you don't fully love yourself, or it's hard to love other people, or find maybe what it is that you want. You don't know what you want.
Right.
And so to have the extra person there to help you cut through your emotions.
Yes.
Those emotions and limiting beliefs. Yeah.
To be the sounding board of just to knock an idea off. Like that's the things that Jason and I have done. Sometimes we're talking, it's like, gee, that's a really good idea, Jason. And just and that's why we bring on some great guests, and we have had, it's been some great conversations that we learned from.
Yeah,
Because one of my favorite sayings is that, if you have thought it, if you have been through it, if you have survived it, then you have to share it. Because it doesn't matter. There are people out there that have thought what you thought, that have been through what you're through, and they're in the process, and they're not at the surviving yet.
that brings up another thing that that I struggled with is not just from my perspective, but generally, people have told me this, that, well, you're not well, so you can't help other people. You're still in process. Well, who isn't?
Who isn't?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I was talking with a good friend of mine. They have moved away since then, but they were a counselor. And she says, no, absolutely not. That is exactly what makes you a compassionate person.
Yes.
Is everything you've gone through makes you the kind of person that relates to other people, and that other people can relate to, because they're going through it, and if they know you have gone through it, they're going to trust you more.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, literally the clip I posted from my podcast Coffee and Grit yesterday was with a young lady named Tiffany Turner, who actually is in the office down the hall here from me.
Okay.
But she's been a behavioral therapist for years, for a long time. She actually just 2 years ago opened up her coaching business to be able to go and take people deeper, because like kind of what you talked about in therapy, you focus on the problems, right? In coaching, you focus on the possibilities, you focus on what is possible, and like, okay, yeah, that's a challenge, that's a hurdle, how can we overcome that? How do we move past that and move forward, as opposed to constantly looking through life in that rear view? Went on a little tangent. Anyways, the clip that I posted yesterday is just it's like 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and it's talking about exactly this. She's talking about going to the store and running into one of her clients in the store, and she's doing behavioral therapy on kids and with behavioral challenges, and one of her kids is misbehaving, and she's like having a bad day, so she snaps at them, and she's doing opposite of what she's coached them to do. And she's like, I've just had to learn that it's life. Is life's experiences, right? And I'm not always perfect. I'm going through the same things you're going through, and that's what makes me that person that you can come to, is because I understand. I'm empathetic, and I can understand, and I'm working on it, and I'm constantly improving. I'm constantly getting better.
Absolutely.
And I think personally, I think that's one of the biggest things between therapy and coaching, is that we're looking at like I have a client that is, okay, tell me, this is what you've been through. Okay, great. Yeah, we're done with that now. Where do you want to be a month from now? Where do you want to be 6 months from now? Where do you want to be 5 years from now?
Yeah.
So, but let's map out a little bit that is fluid. Like I call it mind flow. In fluid, you don't have to have so narrow a scope that, oh, well, I can only do this. Well, no, okay, that might be a step in the right direction, but where's that next step going to lead you to the next step?
Right.
And I think that's what coaching does more of. It's okay, you're here now, so what can be next?
Right. It's all about the client making the decisions, making the agenda, and moving forward, rather than and this is absolutely necessary, but with a therapist, they go back to the origin of, and that is necessary. I mean, that is definitely a necessary process that we all need to be able to view that and reprocess it so that it's healthy.
Right, to reframe it.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Jason and I, we've talked about just about reframing, and just seeing the gorilla in the room. He did this exercise with and I was like, I had to do this focus exercise, and then afterwards he said, so did you see the gorilla? I went, gorilla? What gorilla? And we did it again, and I went, how did I miss the gorilla?
Right. It was the funnest exercise. I refer sometimes back to a guy named Rick Carson. Maybe you've heard of the book Taming Your Gremlins.
I've heard of this. Yeah.
It's an amazing book.
Oh,
It's really a different approach to it can be used in counseling or in in coaching. And what he does is he looks at the problems as gremlins, things
Right.
that prevent us from doing things, and they keep popping up.
Right.
You know, like a little voice in the back of your head that says you're not worthy, or that's something you can't do. You don't know how to do that. He is a psychotherapist, and he has created this whole process of helping people by naming their gremlins.
yes. I name mine.
We all do. We all have to.
We all
Otherwise,
have.
they'll forever. I mean, you've seen the movie Gremlins. Golly, you know, it's exactly right. They just tear up everything and prevent you from moving forward or living a life that is enjoyable. And, you know, once you name it, that's the big part. The rest of it is just day-to-day maintenance of taming it and telling it, you don't have control over me anymore.
Right. Wow. Well, yeah, just a great conversation, David. Thank you so much for coming on. How can people get in touch with you?
Yes, you can.
Oh, and one other question before you
Yeah.
take it. Do you work with non-military people too?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yeah, I focus on military because that's where my heart is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anybody with trauma, one of the things that's really close to my heart is sexual trauma. I have experienced that, and people think, how can you as a man experience sexual trauma? It does happen. It happens a lot more than you would think.
Yeah.
So
wow.
you can reach me through my website, which is lifecrafterscoaching.com. My email is coach@lifecrafterscoaching.com.
So,
And my phone number, if you want to take that, is
well, we'll
503.
put that on the show notes because we don't need to.
Oh,
put it-
okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll put that in the show notes. Yeah, we
Cool.
just, you know, these days with crazies out there. Yeah, I don't put my phone number out there. You know, you just, you know,
That's
they
so
can,
funny.
and then you get, and a friend of mine has had like a text campaign that she's getting all these texts.
Right.
Oh no.
And it's like, where are these coming from?
Mhm.
Right.
And somehow it's out there, and it's like, and it's becoming an issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. We'll put that in the show notes. And if somebody wants to reach out, they can go through the show notes. They'll have to go look for it, which most people won't do. But anyways, Jason, any last words?
No, awesome. Yeah, great show, David. It's awesome diving in more with what you're doing and helping people take control of their life.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
Yeah, I just always said, I think because of what with David, because that was one of the things that he struggled with, was when he had to go for treatment and stuff. He said, well, you know what? He said, I haven't lost a limb, or I haven't done this and I haven't done that. And he went to one of the counselors and made him realize that, you know what, David, you signed on the dotted line.
Right.
You were willing to give it all. And our veterans deserve our respect and our praise. And so thank you so much for just bringing to light that there is help for those people out there. That if you're listening and you need help, reach out.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no shame in reaching out. If you have any of the symptoms that we've talked about today, or if you just need a friendly voice to talk to.
Right.
You know, just reach out. So absolutely.
That's so important.
So important. So David, thank you so much again. And everybody will be back next week. You've been listening to the Everyday Riches Show. And you know what? Today, look for the riches. And they can be little small things. They can be big things. But every day, look for the rich in your life. Have a great
Awesome.
one.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you,
everybody.
Barbara, Jason.